It just raises too many questions. Hey everyone, it's Movie Lover 120 here, and I'm here with a brand new movie review, and this movie review is going to be for the third installment of the original series of this character. Well, technically this is the second, to me this is the second standalone adaptation. It's marketed as a sequel to the last one, but I don't like really calling this one a sequel because it has a new actor for the character, and it has a new director, and it has kind of a new direction, so I don't know why this seems to qualify as a sequel to the last installment, but this movie is going to be for the third installment of the original Batman series, and that was the beginning of the two-movie dreaded Joel Schumacher era, and that is Batman Forever, released in 1995. So how was this movie made? Well, y'all remember when Batman Returns was released in 1992 to financial success and favorable reviews from critics, but Warner Brothers was disappointed with its box office run, as it made $150 million less than the first film. And not to mention, the soccer moms deemed Batman Returns too dark and inappropriate for children, with McDonald's even shutting down their Happy Meal tie-in. Even though Batman was a kid's character, he has some kid-friendly merchandise, but he is not or ever was written as a children's character. Get it through your heads. Warner Bros. Decided that this was the primary cause of the film's financial results and asked Burton to step down in favor of another director. Dang. While Sam Raimi and John McTiernan were considered, those would have been pretty good choices, honestly. Joel Schumacher was selected by Warner Bros. After his job in The Client and approved by Burton. Joel Schumacher was also the guy who directed The Lost Boys, the best vampire movie of all time. Husband and wife screenwriting couple Lee and Janet Scott Bakula were brought on to write the script, and agreed with Burton that the key element of Batman is his duality, and it's not just Batman as Bruce Wayne. So their original script was introduced a psychotic Riddler with a pet rat accompanying him. The story elements and much of the dialogue still remained in the finished film, though Schumacher felt it could be lightened down. Keaton initially approved the selection of Schumacher as director and planned on reprising his role as Batman from the first two films. Schumacher claims he originally had in mind an adaptation of Frank Miller's Batman Year One, and Keaton claimed that he was enthusiastic about the idea. Warner Brothers rejected the idea as they wanted a sequel, not a prequel. Though Schumacher was able to include very brief events in Bruce Wayne's childhood with some events of the comic The Dark Knight Returns. Akiva Goldsman, who worked with Schumacher on The Client, was brought in to rewrite the script, deleting the initial idea of bringing in the Scarecrow as a villain with Riddler, and the return of Catwoman. Burton, who was now more interested in directing Ed Wood, later reflected he was taken aback by some of the focus group meetings for Batman Forever, a title he hated. Producer Peter McGregor represented the studio's aim to making a film for the MTV generation with full merchandising appeal. So yeah, this movie was not Schumacher's fault. It was the studio's. And the soccer moms for complaining about Batman Returns. Schumacher clearly wanted to make an even more violent and darker Batman movie, one that would probably be even more violent and darker than Batman Returns. But no! Everything had to be lighthearted in that era. But anyway, Batman Forever was released on June 16, 1995, to mixed reviews from critics, who praised the visuals, action sequences, and performance of Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones, but they criticized his CGI, costume designs, and tonal departure from previous films. But the film was a box office success, grossed over $336 million worldwide, and became the sixth highest grossing film of 1995. So it made more money than Batman Returns. Somehow. As for my reaction, I did like this movie when I was a kid, but as I've gotten older and older, my reaction to it has soured ever since then. Although not nearly as much as my reaction to the film that came after this one. Anyway, that's pretty much most fans' reactions to this one. It's not as bad as Batman or Robin, but it's not a great Batman movie. Anyway, let's get on with the bad qualities of this film. Bad qualities are obviously the executive meddling. Because like I said, since Batman Returns made less money than expected, the studio thought the reason why it didn't make as much money is because it was too dark and inappropriate. Consequently, Tim Burton then got replaced by Joel, and there were many changes made to the series' aesthetics and tone, much to Schumacher's dismay. The switch to a lighthearted and less dark direction was not only an attempt to increase the box office by making the film more accessible to families because Warner Bros. Just wants to make money, but they also increased merchandise and licensing income from toys and promotional tie-ins. Notably, fast food giant McDonald's helped portray that their children's Happy Meals promoting Batman Returns were ultimately connected to the dreary and inappropriate end result and threatened to pull potential future promotional deals with the franchise, bearing a major change in the series' direction, going so far as to refusing to sign any deal without full script ethics and having creative input on the costuming. As a result of the tonal shift, Gotham City went from an actually well-portrayed depressing industrial such Gothic City, described in an 89 script as hell erupted through the pavements and built a city, and turned to a contrasty, neon-lit circus, likened by the creatives to nighttime Tokyo. And thanks to copious amounts of footage being excised, most likely the subplot of Bruce's struggle to accept his role as Batman, which was the basic of the film's title, there is an inconsistent tone as the film shifts between attempts at drama or character development and sees a cartoonish overacting without budget material to help transition moods. The leads are even given entourage to this movie. So, for starters, Val Kilmer's performance as Bruce Wayne is inappropriately reserved in contrast to both the surrounding film and previous actor Michael Keaton's portrayal of the Playboy. And Chris O'Donnell gives a confusing performance as Dick Grayson, aka Robin, which this is his first live-action portrayal in a movie, alternating between smug and assured, and whiny and bratty, often without reason. The villain portrayals feel like a downgrade from the two previous films, like with the Riddler and Two-Face vying for the same role of manic, over-the-top cartoon character. While Jim Carrey is an obvious choice to fill the Riddler's rights, and Jim Carrey actually does give a good performance as the Riddler, I will say that. Two-Face is a conundrum of a character, and Tommy Lee Jones is woefully miscast in the parts. The only established trait of Two-Face is his belief in chance as the only means of dividing justice, often flipping a coin to determine his actions. Yet a scene later in the second act has him repeatedly flipping a coin until he gets the result he wants. Worse yet, this isn't a clever revelation that the character has been pulling one over on our heroes, but a straight-up misunderstanding of who he is, as he ultimately ends up dying over his inability to make a choice without his beloved coin. What's worse is that Tommy Lee Jones didn't even play Harvey Dent in the 1989 movie. He was played by Billy Dee Williams. So that was a pointless recasting. That's another reason why I don't consider this a sequel. Jones's discomfort with the role in his co-star is palpable. As his demeanor seems to shift whenever they share the screen. According to Carrey, him and Tommy Lee Jones did not get along well, which is pretty much a major red flag when you're casting actors for Two-Face and Riddler. He told him at the time, "I hate you, I really don't like you, cannot stand your buffoonery." There's inconsistencies that seem baffling to the story in general, like, why would Batman ever appear in court, as seen on a news broadcast, or Batman's stance that Robin shouldn't kill Two-Face is hypocritical. After telling Robin that killing his own parents is murder taught him no peace, and that he wouldn't help Robin do the same, he himself kills Two-Face at the end of the movie. which is very hypocrite. There's a scene where Batman says that he's never fallen in love before, despite having a love interest in both of the previous films. And yes, the word love was used in those movies too. The movie even tries to take on a more campy, toyetic approach than Burton's films did, such as the scene where the Batmobile drives up a wall, or where the Riddler and Two-Face are playing Battleship to sink Batman and Robin's vehicles. Dr. Chase Meridian is a creepy love interest too, and she is stalkerish and deceitful, and the movie seems to find no issues with it. Her sexual assault on Batman after calling him under the false pretense of a crime is treated as amusing and flirtatious. The pacing can be sluggish or cartoony at times, and lacks that tight direction that Burton's films had. It can also be attributed to the fact that Schumacher was told to make the movie more kid-friendly, but instead he ended up making it more campy and similar to the 1966 Batman series, and the inconsistent tone that the movie portrays can also make the pacing seem disjointed at times. And Bruce Wayne taking a Dick Grayson after his parents die doesn't make much sense. He's a fully grown man, with Bruce even calling him a college student. Derisively at one point, Gordon's handwear of Dick having nowhere else to go does a lot of heavy lifting in this film. And vestiges of cut plot threads linger throughout the film, primarily scenes surrounding the aftermath of the death of Bruce's parents, ultimately leading nowhere. And there's numerous homoerotic obvities such as the Batman and Robin suits having sculpted nipples and oversized cod pieces, and the infamous suit scene with legend and close-up of Batman's foam rubber buttocks, which would become the big thing the next one. Edward having an infatuation with Bruce to the point the good doctor refers his messages to Bruce as literal love letters, to the point of beginning to twin him when appearing in public, though it's ultimately portrayed as attempting to be a bigger, better, smarter version of Bruce. Some of the dialogue is phoned in, and there's a few one-liners that don't sound clever or funny. And quite possibly the most awkward way of telling the audience a character knows how to fight without putting him in an actual fight, like, for example, the laundry scene. However, the reason it's the least bad of the two Schumacher films is because of these good qualities. And those good qualities are, the action scenes are still nicely done, with the Batsuit being much more flexible and action-friendly than previous versions. The cinematography is beautiful. Arkham Asylum from the comics does finally make an appearance in this Batman film series. And Robin finally makes an appearance in the Batman film series. As mentioned, despite being campy, there are still some dark moments, and it can still be taken seriously at times at least. And although Val Kilmer's performance wasn't great as mentioned above, he still does a better job playing Batman than George Clooney did in the next film. Nelly Goldenthal's score is fantastic, and the soundtrack, with such as Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me by U2, and Kiss from a Rose by Seal, was one of the most popular albums of the year, selling more than 2 million copies in the US alone. And to its credit, it was the first live-action Batman film to put on the focus on Bruce Wayne, grappling with his double life and gave him plenty of character development. And Jim Carrey's The Riddler was great, despite the choice to initiate the character from the Batman 1966 TV series. It's still a much better movie than its later sequel, Batman and Robin, which I've already said, despite its faults, but you may still enjoy it. And Joel Schumacher's direction is consistently pointed towards maximalist bombast, so the film style, intentionally classic as it may be, is at least consistent in execution, and there's a lot of energy on the screen. And hey, the movie can even be considered as so bad it's a good movie. So yeah, other than that, this is a pretty bad follow-up to Batman Returns, and I guess if you want to see a live-action portrayal of Robin in the films, then maybe give this movie a watch, and because Jim Carrey is still enjoyable as the Riddler, those are the only things you need to see if you're that are worth make this film even worth watching. Other than that, if you prefer a darker Batman movie, then totally avoid this movie at all costs. Anyway, that's it for my review of Batman Forever, and here's how I'm going to rank Batman Forever. I'm going to give Batman Forever a 5 out of 10. And there we go. That wraps up my review for Batman Forever. And unfortunately, I think we know the next movie that's gonna have to talk about next. Dare I even need to fucking say it? Yep. That's gonna be fun to talk about. But until then, that'll be it for this review. Thank y'all for watching. And if you like this and want to see more, then don't forget to like, subscribe to Movie Lover 120.